Hey, internet out there, here to talk about things going on in the world around us. This one is turning into something a lot more interesting than what initially happened. Initially, Gina Carano was fired by Lucasfilm, and if you read the post that she initially did, it has a picture of a woman with her shirt getting ripped off in Nazi Germany, and basically stated that the people, most of the beatings that occurred in the streets weren't from Nazi brown shirts, but from actual people trying to prove that they were with the cause to actually hide their true selves from the Nazis. Um, and knowing Disney's history and how they fired the likes of James Gunn for a tweet he had almost a decade prior to him actually working with Disney, it didn't actually surprise me that Gina Carano would have been fired. But more and more stuff obviously started resurfacing, one of which is Pedro Pascal has had multiple tweets where he's making references to Nazis that are fireable offenses. One of the show's producers has an offensive, in my opinion, an offensive tweet of a MAGA supporter putting his hand in a wood chipper. And there's another Disney employee who has a lot of racial tweets that are fireable offenses, in my opinion. So yeah, the double standard is clear, and that was to no surprise. But what is surprising is the aftermath of this all on both fronts. First and foremost, I'm going to talk about Gina Carano. Gina Carano is not backing down, and awesome. Ben Shapiro reached out to her, see if she wants to work with the Daily Wire as a producer, maybe an actor as well in his movies. And she took up his offer, and she made a 25-minute long interview with Ben Shapiro talking about what she'd been going through with Lucasfilm and Disney, and kind of how strict they are with conservatives. And some of that stuff still makes sense because Disney's so protective of the brand. But Gina Carano also talked about how generally the crew on film and television sets are very blue collar, and they're afraid to open up about anything, and that's super informative as well. So Gina Carano has evolved into what could possibly be the beginning of the end of Hollywood, a famous star. I could say actress because she's a mixed martial artist who is standing up to the machine and who is supporting alternative form of media completely outside of Hollywood, self-funded, and will make stuff outside the machine. And Hollywood's in trouble. They're obviously not going to survive with movie theaters dying on the vine, and obviously not able to shoot as high of a quality of picture as they generally like to do, especially with the low budget stuff. And with all the COVID restrictions going on in California, we're gonna see a lot of stuff changing in these next couple of years, thanks to people like Gina Carano sending up the machine, making their own pictures. But here's the other thing I want to talk about, which is super fascinating, is on the other end, on the Lucasfilm end. Rosario Dawson, as well as Bill Burr, have become the target of the Twitter cancel culture mob. What do they have in common? They're both stars of The Mandalorian, who have at times presented views somewhat conservative. Rosario Dawson's coming out with the cancel her tweets all about like 10 years ago. She had something relatively resembling somewhat anti-trans, and it's even less resembling something anti-trans than when Gina Carano did Beep Bop Boop. When Gina Carano did Beep Bop Boop, Gina Carano was told by Lucasfilm that you have to go to a board of people a board of LGBT activists um, to be reprimanded by them to how to change her ways. And she refused. Good thing, because that's ridiculous. And she offered to take, I don't know, a dozen people out to dinner to discuss. And they turned down her offer, but then it turned into her having a maybe one-on-four conversation. And yeah, so that happened, and Gina Carano weathered that storm, and then she did this other tweet, and then she was fired. So that's what happened. Sorry, really quick, just responding to this text. And then here's the other thing that is happening with Lucasfilm. A lot of people are starting to suspect that Kathleen Kennedy, who is the lady who has a long history of producing films by just being in the right place at the right time. Prior to her picking up the mantle of Star Wars from George Lucas, she was a producer on the Indiana Jones pictures, and her most famous picture she executive produced actually, was Jurassic Park in 1993, which we all know is a smash hit. We all know it was the highest grossing feature film from 1993 to 1997. And we all know that the reason why it's successful isn't because Kathleen Kennedy, it's because of Steven Spielberg, and it's because of Michael Crichton. And other people like Phil Tippett, and great cast, Sam Neill, Jeff Goldblum, blah, 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 blah. It's one of the best pictures of all time, in my opinion. Not necessarily in terms of writing, but just in terms of just symbiotic greatness. So Kathleen Kennedy is just known the right people. You know, she worked on Indiana Jones and worked on Jurassic Park. So she's been connected with George Lucas, because George and Steven Spielberg are really close. So that's how she ended up with Star Wars, because George Lucas thought that all the magic that was happening is somewhat thanks to Kathleen Kennedy. So she ends up with Star Wars, and she has made a lot of bad decisions. One of the bad decisions she made was of not doing a streamlined cinematic universe like what Kevin Feige did with Marvel, where he made sure all the dots connected. She made each of the new trilogy have a different director and not make sure that the stars align. So much so that there had to be half a dozen retcons between The Last Jedi and Rise of the Skywalker. And so that's why we have two completely different movies, two completely different storylines going in two completely different directions, and they're both complete crap. And the other major mistake she made is she influenced Bob Iger. When Bob Iger was designing Star Wars Land, she pulls him aside and says that we should not include characters from the original trilogy in Star Wars Land, because we're not making a thing for the old generation to enjoy, coming from the past, and just being nostalgic. We're making something new, and we're making something for a new generation of people to enjoy. So let's just include Rey. Let's include Finn. Let's include maybe throw in a Chewbacca here and there, and that'll be it. So no Darth Vader, no Boba Fett, no Luke Skywalker, none of that. Yeah. So if you're unhappy with the way Star Wars Land turned out in Disney World and Disneyland, Kathleen Kennedy is the one to blame. So a lot of people are suspecting that Kathleen Kennedy is actually behind the cancel Gina Carano and cancel Rosario Dawson. Some of the rumblings now of Bill Burr, and she's on the chopping block. She's made 3 pictures back to back that each should have the potential to make $2 billion, and each of which fell shorter and shorter and shorter of actually reaching that goal. And obviously, each of those pictures have $300 million, $400 million budgets to make Avengers level quality of film. And how can you go wrong? You have John Williams. You have Star Wars, one of the most eternal intellectual properties ever to exist in all of film, and they mess that up. And then here Jon Favreau comes along and says, okay, we're going to simplify it. We're going to go back to our roots. We're going to David Campbell, um, uh, the Man of a Thousand Faces, the monomyth. Yeah, the idea that all things come from a formula instead of trying to make something new. He made something very similar to Star Wars, but more focused on smaller world stuff with The Mandalorian, season 1 especially. And then he's going to blow up the internet and put Luke Skywalker, spoiler alert, sorry if you haven't seen the last episode of The Mandalorian, in the last episode of The Mandalorian. And then from that, he's going to expand into all these different shows, including a show featuring Gina Carano, talking about how the Republic is going to rebuild the galaxy. And of course, it makes sense. Gina Carano wants to hang on to her job, maybe get behind some Twitter rumblings, pay some people to put some pressure on some of the cast of The Mandalorian to help solidify her place at the true head of Star Wars. And Jon Favreau, of course, very upset, and has not been public, but there have been reports of him not being happy, as well as George Lucas not being happy. Because here's what happens on the set of The Mandalorian. George Lucas is on the set of The Mandalorian. Kathleen Kennedy is not on the set of The Mandalorian. George Lucas is not on the set of the new trilogy. George Lucas is very involved with The Mandalorian and also with I forget the name of the guy from the animated series who I like as well. He's a fantastic director as well. In a nutshell, Jon Favreau and the creators and the amazing directors behind The Mandalorian have done an amazing job creating a product that Star Wars fans love, as well as brought everyone over to Disney Plus. What happened to Disney Plus after Gina Carano was fired was this huge move to cancel Disney Plus, and Disney is losing billions of dollars in, well, maybe not billions, but definitely tens of billions, or maybe hundreds of millions of dollars of value in Disney Plus because of the firing of Gina Carano and the conservative population, which is turning into more and more seeming of a majority in this country, who are just tired of the Facebook, tired of the Twitter, tired of the cancel culture, and yeah, they're sticking to Disney Plus because they wanted a show featuring Gina Carano, and now they're not getting it. So yeah, Disney is not happy, and it's looking like Kathleen Kennedy is fired. If Kathleen Kennedy is fired, that proves Gina Carano a martyr for something that could prove to be a true change in the tide when it comes to cancel culture. And I honestly hope that is the case. So we'll keep an eye on that, and I look forward to seeing whatever movies Gina Carano is producing with the Daily Wire. That's it for me, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.